It took 6 officers, a fire ladder truck, and even a very perplexed police dog to storm my backyard. And all of it started because Margaret Fitzgerald dialed 911. Not for an intruder, not for smoke, not even for a loose raccoon like the one our neighborhood once had, who, according to rumor, was named Chester. No, Margaret reported that I was constructing a fortified installation in open view of the neighborhood. As one baffled sergeant later clarified, what she was so alarmed about was, in fact, my shed. Admittedly, the shed had acquired barbed wire, a motion-detecting turret, and a keypad-secured steel door. Margaret escalated. So naturally, I escalated back. To explain, let me rewind a few months. My name is David Harper. I moved into Cypress Ridge Estates to enjoy a peaceful retirement. At 52, with a background in electrical engineering, my hobbies were documentaries, weekend barbecues, and the kind of projects that require both blueprints and a permit. Then there was Margaret, head of the HOA, self-proclaimed guardian of order, and multiple-time winner of Best Lawn. She was in her late 60s, wore pastel suits like they were armor, and once reprimanded a neighbor for displaying what she considered an offensive garden gnome. Her most treasured possession was the HOA handbook, 273 laminated, cross-reference pages that she practically recited by heart. The trouble began the day she noticed a delivery truck drop off steel panels and infrared cameras at my place. She stormed over, eyes sharp, and demanded to know what I was constructing. A shed, I said with a smile. She narrowed her eyes and replied, "There's no such thing as just a shed." That should have been my warning, but I still believed in property rights and common sense back then. Not long after, citations started rolling in like clockwork. Unauthorized modifications, overextended structure dimensions, reflective surfaces deemed unacceptable, excessive hammering outside the quiet hours of 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., even fence line implications of militarization. I tried to be cooperative, submitted official plans, did everything by the book. Margaret rejected them with a letter that included her own sketch for what she called a community-friendly gnome hut. The drawing looked like a child's doodle, but her intent was clear. She wanted me to stop. When that didn't work, she resorted to surveillance. I'd catch her peering over the fence with opera binoculars, documenting the sound of my drills as evidence of aggressive intent. Once, she slipped me a note that read, "This is a neighborhood, not NORAD." Ignoring her only made things worse. Her next move was activating what she grandly referred to as the emergency HOA hotline, which turned out to be nothing more than a landline phone with a sticker that said Command Center. When that failed to get her results, she went straight to 911. She told the dispatcher I was constructing a military base in violation of zoning laws, and possibly the Geneva Convention. The dispatcher, clearly struggling to keep calm, asked if there were actual weapons. Margaret insisted the structure itself was weapon-adjacent. So, when police showed up on a Tuesday afternoon, they expected to uncover drugs or illegal arms. Instead, they found me at the grill, cooking ribeyes beside what, I admit, looked like a mini Pentagon. By then, the shed had solar panels, reinforced locks, ventilation good enough for a storm shelter, and inside, tools, fishing gear, fertilizer, and a climate-controlled bourbon shelf I was proud of. Margaret, meanwhile, paced the sidewalk, pearls jangling, shouting about war crimes. I calmly handed Officer Daniels my blueprints. Everything was within regulation. Even the barbed wire was fake, purchased from a Halloween store as a joke. After her 15th complaint, Daniels finally asked her if she truly claimed I had surface-to-air missiles. Margaret, unfazed, said it appeared missile-adjacent. Daniels warned her about wasting public resources, but she pressed on, filing an HOA injunction, complete with color-coded tabs and somehow screenshots of my online orders. Unfortunately for her, my niece Sandra worked at the county clerk's office. She recognized the absurdity and flagged the filing as potential harassment. Meanwhile, I decided to retaliate creatively. I installed mirrors on my shed's roof, angled to shine sunlight directly onto Margaret's rose garden during her daily tea ritual. Margaret countered with a so-called privacy screen, which was 3 inches taller than the legal height. I reported her, and to her horror, the very HOA she ruled fined her $150. Would you like me to continue the story past this point? Maybe with final showdown between David and Margaret, or keep it ending here with Margaret finally getting fined? 2 days later, her so-called privacy screen toppled over in what the local weather service described as nothing more than a light breeze. At that exact moment, I happened to be indoors with 3 neighbors, all of us watching a documentary on structural engineering failures. My alibi was airtight. What followed could only be described as suburban trench warfare. She hired a private investigator who sent a drone to circle my shed like a vulture. In response, I put up a flagpole, and the flag shadow fell squarely across her kitchen window every morning. She filed a complaint with the post office claiming my mailbox was tilted 2 degrees off standard. I countered by reporting her lawn for exceeding height restrictions by 1/16 of an inch during a drought. She attempted to rally the neighborhood against me with a petition, but the tide had already turned. Most people had grown tired of her iron grip on the community and instead signed a counter-petition backing my right to build the shed. Then came the monthly HOA meeting, a spectacle no one wanted to miss. Neighbors packed the room, snacks in hand, anticipating fireworks. I had prepared a little surprise. When the floor opened for public comments, I stood and announced I had evidence of trespassing on my property. The entire room went silent, save for the clatter of Margaret's gavel slipping from her hand. I connected my laptop to the projector. The footage began, timestamp 11:47 p.m., 3 nights earlier. The grainy night vision revealed Margaret, clad in a bathrobe and sneakers, clambering over my fence. In her hand was a tape measure and what looked suspiciously like a Geiger counter. Into her walkie-talkie, she whispered, "Operation Shed is Go. Eagle One is entering the perimeter." She lost her footing halfway down and crashed directly into my koi pond, sending my imported fish darting for cover. The crowd burst into laughter. Margaret, beet red, stammered about conducting a safety inspection. But the video went on. It showed her sloshing out the pond, dripping water everywhere, then struggling to measure the shed while her bathrobe tangled with my garden stakes. She tripped on the hose, toppled the bird bath, and finally scrambled away when my motion-activated sprinklers came on, pelting her like artillery fire. When the clip ended, the actual HOA president, Robertson, the man Margaret had sidelined for years, rose and called for an immediate vote. The decision was unanimous. She was stripped of all committee authority, barred from enforcing rules for 5 years, and ordered to attend a civility and boundaries course at the community center. But her troubles weren't over. My niece had forwarded the situation to the county prosecutor, who reviewed everything and filed charges: trespassing, harassment, and misuse of emergency services. Trespassing was minor, but harassment carried weight because of her repeated actions. The false 911 call about a military installation triggered a felony charge. At her arraignment the next month, she faced Judge Patricia Blackwell, who lived just 3 blocks away and had personally been on the receiving end of Margaret's petty HOA notices. The judge was stone-faced. Margaret was found guilty across the board. Her punishment was steep: 200 hours of community service, most of it doing lawn care for elderly neighbors who couldn't keep up with the HOA's exacting standards. She was fined $2,000 for trespassing, and the false emergency report cost her a whopping $10,000 plus 2 years of probation. Standing there in court, Margaret's complexion cycled from scarlet to purple before finally fading to a ghostly white. She fainted mid-sentence, collapsing into her attorney's arms before she hit the floor. Would you like me to expand this further with what happened to Margaret after sentencing? Maybe how the neighborhood changed once she lost power, or keep the story ending dramatically at her courtroom collapse?